People always ask me why I refuse to drive through West Texas after dark. I usually laugh it off and tell them I don't like deer on the highway. That's easier than explaining what actually happened. Because if I tell the truth, they either think I'm lying or they stop smiling halfway through the story. This happened 3 years ago. I was 27, delivering medical equipment between Dallas and El Paso. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid well enough, and I spent more nights sleeping in roadside motels than in my own apartment. I've driven thousands of miles across Texas. Most of the roads are exactly what you'd expect: long, empty stretches of asphalt disappearing into endless desert. Gas stations become rare after midnight. Radio stations fade into static. Cell service comes and goes. You learn to enjoy the silence, until the silence starts listening back. That Friday started like every other trip. I left Dallas around noon with enough time to reach El Paso before sunrise. The weather forecast promised clear skies, no rain, no storms, nothing unusual. Around 10 that night, I stopped at a tiny gas station outside Midland. The place looked ancient, one pump, one flickering open sign. An old man stood behind the register reading a newspaper that looked older than I was. He glanced at the GPS mounted on my dashboard. "Heading west?" Laughed. "Why?" "Construction." He didn't sound convincing. I checked my phone. No traffic alerts, no closures, nothing. "You sure?" He looked toward the black highway outside the window. "I'm sure enough." I thanked him, bought coffee, and left. 5 minutes later, my GPS chimed. "Faster route available. Save 47 minutes?" Highway 191. I remembered the old man's warning. Then I looked at the arrival time. 47 minutes was almost an hour. I tapped accept. The road looked perfectly normal. Fresh pavement, bright lane markings, no construction, no barricades, no warning signs, just darkness. For almost an hour, I didn't see another vehicle, not one. No headlights, no taillights, nothing. Eventually, I realized something strange. The mile markers were counting backward. Mile 86, then 79, then 65. That wasn't impossible. Maybe the highway had started from another county. Still, it bothered me. Then the GPS spoke again. "Continue straight for 31 miles. A minute later, "Continue straight for 31 miles. Same distance, exactly the same voice, exactly the same instruction. I frowned. The road hadn't changed. Why repeat it? I restarted the GPS. The screen went black, then rebooted. The map loaded again, except my truck icon wasn't on a road anymore. It was sitting inside a large gray area. No towns, no highways, just an empty gray square. I pulled over. No signal, no location, nothing. The desert around me was silent, too silent. Even the insects had disappeared. Then I noticed something impossible. There was another truck parked about 50 yards behind me. I could have sworn the road had been empty. Its headlights were off. The engine wasn't running. It hadn't been there 30 seconds earlier. I climbed out and waved. No response. I walked closer. The truck looked almost identical to mine. Same company logo, same scratches near the rear bumper, same dent above the driver's side wheel. My stomach tightened. No, that couldn't be right. I reached the driver's window. The glass was filthy. Inside sat someone wearing my uniform, head resting against the steering wheel. I knocked. Slowly, the person lifted his head. It was me. Not someone who looked like me. Me. Same beard, same scar above my eyebrow from high school football, same jacket, same watch, even the same terrified expression. He looked directly into my eyes. Then he mouthed 4 words. "Don't keep driving west." The cabin lights flickered. For a split second, the truck disappeared. When the lights stabilized, the road behind me was empty again. No tire tracks, no truck,
Nothing. I stumbled backward and climbed into my own truck, hands shaking, heart pounding. I slammed the doors shut, locked them, started the engine. The dashboard clock read 12:14 a.m. I drove, fast. The GPS stayed black. The radio produced only static. Then a voice whispered through the speakers. Not electronic, not distorted, calm, almost gentle. "You already passed the exit." I froze. What exit? Silence. Then, the last one. I checked every mirror. The highway behind me stretched into darkness, completely empty. Except, far in the distance, something was standing in the middle of the road. It looked like a person, completely still, watching. And as I pressed harder on the accelerator, I realized it wasn't getting farther away. It was getting closer, without moving.
I pushed the accelerator to the floor. The speedometer climbed past 80, then 90. The engine roared across the empty Texas highway. Still, the figure ahead didn't get any farther away. It remained exactly the same size in my windshield, as if the road itself refused to let me reach it. I rubbed my eyes. Maybe exhaustion was catching up to me. I'd been driving for nearly 12 hours. Maybe I had fallen asleep for a few seconds. Maybe none of this was real. Then the dashboard clock blinked. 12:14 a.m. Still, not 12:15, not 12:16. The second hand wasn't moving. The digital numbers never changed. My phone was no better. No signal, no battery percentage, only the time, 12:14, frozen. I rolled down the window. Warm desert air should have rushed inside. Instead, there was almost nothing. No wind, no sound from the tires, no insects. Even the engine seemed strangely quiet. It felt as if the entire world had been muted. The figure finally moved, not by walking. It simply wasn't in the road anymore. One moment it stood in front of me. The next it was standing beside an old highway sign. I slammed on the brakes. Dust rolled past the truck. The sign looked ancient, eaten away by rust. It read, "Welcome to Red Creek. Population 327. Below that, someone had spray painted a second message. "Turn around before they notice you." My headlights swept across the road. There wasn't a single house, no lights, no town, nothing. Yet another sign appeared 50 feet farther ahead. Red Creek, 2 miles. That made no sense. How could I already be in the town if it was still 2 miles away? Before I could think about it, the GPS suddenly came to life. The screen displayed one destination: home. Distance? Unknown. Estimated arrival? Never. I should have turned around. Every instinct screamed at me to make a U-turn and leave. Instead, curiosity won. Maybe because I wanted answers. Maybe because I was afraid the road behind me no longer existed. I kept driving. A few minutes later, buildings slowly emerged from the darkness. An abandoned diner, a church with shattered stained glass windows, a sheriff's office with no patrol cars. Every building looked untouched by time. No graffiti, no broken doors, just empty. The town felt like everyone had stood up and walked away at the exact same second. Then I noticed the cars. Old pickups, sedans from the 1980s. Every vehicle was parked perfectly between the lines. Every driver's door stood open. Every interior was empty. No keys, no belongings, no people, as if they had vanished while getting out. The radio crackled. At first I thought it was static. Then I heard voices, dozens of them, talking over each other. Some were laughing, others were crying. One voice became clear. "Please don't answer the door." Another, "They only knock 3 times." And then another, "If you see yourself, don't let it speak first." The transmission ended with a burst of static loud enough to make me jump. The silence afterwards felt worse. My headlights caught movement,
Inside the diner, someone was standing behind the counter. A woman. She wore a faded waitress uniform. Her face was hidden in shadow. I stopped 20 yards away. She slowly lifted one hand, not waving, pointing at me. Then she raised a single finger over her lips. Stay quiet. Before I could react, 3 loud knocks echoed from somewhere behind me. Knock, knock, knock. I spun around. Nothing. No one outside, no cars. The sound had come from inside my truck, from the rear cargo compartment. I hadn't loaded anything that could move. The cargo area had been sealed since Dallas. Another 3 knocks, closer this time. My breathing stopped. Something inside was knocking, trying to get out. I grabbed the flashlight from the passenger seat. Every logical part of my brain told me not to open those rear doors. But another thought kept repeating in my head. What if someone was trapped inside? I stepped out. The night air felt colder now. The waitress in the diner hadn't moved. She was still pointing at me, still holding one finger over her lips. I unlocked the cargo doors. The knocking stopped instantly. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then I pulled the handles. The doors swung open. Empty. Completely empty. Not a single box, not a single delivery crate. Everything I had been transporting, nearly $80,000 worth of medical equipment, was gone. Only one object remained. A dusty cardboard box sat alone in the center of the floor. It had my name written across the top in black marker. Ethan Walker. My hands began to shake. I never wrote my name on shipments. No one did. I lifted the lid. Inside was an old VHS tape. Across its faded label, someone had written, "Your last delivery." The truck's dashboard suddenly lit up by itself. The radio turned on. The windshield wipers began to move across perfectly dry glass. Every door locked, then unlocked, then locked again. My headlights flickered 1, 2, 3 times. When the lights came back on, the waitress was gone. The diner was empty. Every building on the street was dark. But now, people stood outside them. Dozens, men, women, children, perfectly still, facing my truck. None of them blinked. None of them moved. One little boy slowly raised his hand, not to wave, to point at the VHS tape still resting in my hands. Then, in perfect unison, every person in the street opened their mouths and spoke with the exact same voice. You were never supposed to deliver it.
Every person in the street stared at me. None of them blinked. None of them breathed. Together, they repeated the same sentence. You were never supposed to deliver it. Their voices echoed through the empty town, perfectly synchronized, like a recording played through dozens of speakers. Then, every head turned toward the cardboard box, not at the same speed, not naturally. One after another, with slow, sharp movements, as if invisible strings were pulling them. I didn't wait. I threw the box into the passenger seat, slammed the truck into gear, and floored the accelerator. The crowd never chased me. They simply watched. Within seconds, Red Creek disappeared behind me. It wasn't swallowed by darkness. It simply wasn't there anymore. Only an empty highway stretched behind the truck. The GPS suddenly rebooted. A loading bar crawled across the screen. Then a message appeared. Play delivery confirmation. The VHS tape on the passenger seat rattled. Not from the road. It moved on its own. I almost threw it out the window. Instead, I remembered something. My truck still had an old portable media player in the sleeper compartment. It could play VHS tapes through a tiny monitor that the company had never bothered to remove. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I wanted answers more than I wanted to escape. I slid the tape into the player. The screen filled with static. Then, an image appeared. It was my truck, parked on the same highway. The timestamp in the corner read, October 14th, 2029. 3 years in the future. The driver's door opened. I stepped out. Older, thinner, exhausted. My beard was streaked with gray. He looked directly into the camera. "Listen carefully," the older version of me said. "If you're watching this, you ignored the warning at the gas station." My blood ran cold. I've tried hundreds of times to leave this road. Hundreds. Every time I choose Highway 191, I end up back here. The video skipped. Behind future me, dozens of dark figures slowly cross the highway. They don't kill you. I wish they did. They replace you. The image distorted. His face glitched for a fraction of a second. Something else looked back through his eyes. Something smiling far wider than any human could. Future me kept talking. "If you ever reach Red Creek, don't let them know your name." I looked down at the cardboard box beside me. My name was still written across the lid. The tape had known me before I ever arrived. The screen turned black. Then another recording began. This one looked much older. A family stood beside the exact same missing mile marker. The date read 1978. The father smiled into the camera. "We found a shortcut." The picture jumped. The family stood in front of the Red Creek Diner. Another jump. The children were gone. Another. The mother was gone. Another. The father sat alone inside his truck, looking directly into the camera, exactly as I had. His final words were barely audible. "They make copies." Static swallowed the rest. A violent impact shook my truck. Something slammed into the roof, then another and another. The metal groaned. I couldn't see what it was, only shadows racing across the windshield. The cabin lights died. The engine sputtered. The dashboard clock flashed. 12:14. Then 12:15. For the first time all night, time moved. The engine roared back to life. The GPS shouted through the speakers, "Turn around." Instead, I accelerated. The shadows vanished. The desert wind returned. I heard insects, then distant traffic. Headlights appeared in the opposite lane. A real car, the first one I'd seen in hours. As it passed, the driver flashed his lights. I looked in my mirror. The highway behind me was empty. The nightmare was over, or so I believed. At sunrise, I reached the next town. I stopped at a truck stop packed with people, normal people. The cashier smiled. "You have a long night?" You could say that. I asked him if he'd ever heard of Red Creek. He frowned. "No town by that name around here." "What about Highway 191? "Sure." "What mile marker?" I described the rusted sign. His smile disappeared. "My grandfather used to tell stories about that. He said truckers sometimes disappeared out there, but that was decades ago." He laughed nervously. "Just ghost stories." I forced myself to laugh too. Then I noticed the security monitor above the counter. It showed the parking lot outside. My truck sat exactly where I'd left it, but someone was standing beside it, a man in my company uniform. He looked up at the camera. It was me, the older version from the tape. He slowly raised one finger, pointing west. Then the monitor filled with static. I quit my job the same day, sold the truck, moved across the country, never drove through Texas again. For 3 years, nothing happened. Until last month, a plain brown package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a brand new GPS, already turned on. Its screen displayed only one destination, Red Creek. Estimated arrival, 12:14 a.m. Before I could unplug it, the speaker whispered with the same calm voice I had heard on the highway.
We're still waiting for your delivery. I smashed the GPS with a hammer, threw every piece into separate dumpsters across the city. 2 mornings later, it was sitting on my kitchen table, perfectly intact, calculating a route west. If you're ever driving through West Texas late at night and your GPS offers a shortcut down Highway 191, don't accept it. And if, no matter how fast you're driving, you keep seeing the same lonely mile marker, turn around immediately. Because if you reach Red Creek, you may leave the town, but part of you never will.